starting out, I started working in PCL last summer, and when I had gotten their drawing sets, I was kind of like first introduced to, what the CPC coalition or the CP coalition kind of does. I was first introduced to Bluebeam and like the idea of what you guys are trying to get around. So, sorry, excuse me. I thought somebody said something. Okay. So yeah, I had been given a set of drawings, and I was supposed to do like a pretty basic task. Well, it should have been pretty basic, but when I received the drawings and tried to break down some of the information that I was hoping that would be in there, it wasn't. So the drawings were saved as like raster-based images, and I couldn't get any of the original, metadata, any of the original text that was in there. I couldn't like figure out how to maneuver that. So I ended up making, I did a spreadsheet, did some stuff. It took a lot of hand typing, but that's really where my interest came into these standards and these different things, these different guidelines that you guys have created. So I went through doing a couple more things with that, and then I did another internship where I didn't use Bluebeam or any of these guidelines. I still at this point never even heard of the coalition. Like I said, I'm just talking about like the ideas that you guys had were starting to spur me. So I did another internship with PCL, didn't really use that stuff, went on to the spring of this year, and I started using Bluebeam a lot, and it kind of got me like into that direction of like data management through documents and making sure that they could be passed down from one respective discipline to another, amongst, I've only worked for PCL obviously, so it's a construction manager. So amongst the different disciplines in that construction management firm, like guys doing takeoffs, and then other project managers doing scheduling, what have you. So I was really starting to get interested in that stuff, and then my boss had said, you should go meet Terry Ann, my friend from Turner, and she was like, she works with Bluebeam now. So I linked up with her. And she quickly got me into you guys and showed me like the guidelines, and I was like really fascinated that there was this standardized process out there. And I kind of delved into it more, and the one thing that I noticed that you guys were at least lacking on, maybe I didn't come across it, I don't know, but I tried to dig in as much as possible, and I couldn't find anything on how to produce the drawings the way that you guys wanted, like based on the guidelines that you guys had. So based on the guidelines that you guys had. So I kind of delved into it myself, and obviously AutoCAD's, industry standard for producing these drawings with metadata, producing these drawings. However, so I tried to research how to do it. I think your 5 main topics were is it metadata, text? I can't even remember right now, but I tried to figure out how to produce these drawings based on the guidelines that you guys wanted. So I'm going to go over my project a little bit with you, or my presentation that I gave at the user group a couple weeks ago, and show you guys a little bit of what I found on how to actually produce those drawings. And if you guys have any comments or any information for me, like I said, I may have skipped over it. You guys may know how to produce these already, but I could never find anything on it, and I needed it for the job, so I really dug into it. So didn't edit this at all. The first slide is completely a shout out to you guys, and it's the exact same thing that Lonnie just produced for his presentation, with the next quote being the exact same quote again. I thought that was pretty funny. And then so here's where I dug into like raster-based and vector-based images, and then I got into text a little bit. This is straight off a Bluebeam website that defines the difference between rasters and vectors. This is me summing that up a little bit. I'm pretty sure, is everybody here familiar with that stuff? What raster-based and vector-based text is? Like, I don't know the crowd I'm really going for here.
Yeah, I think most everybody here understands the difference. You can keep going.
Yeah, so there's that, and then explain.
Hey Tony, can I interrupt you just a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the workflow you all were using? Were you getting AutoCAD files? Was this a BIM project? Give us a little context of where you were starting from and where you're headed with this, if you don't mind.
I'm not sure if I can really comment accurately on that. I'm under the impression that it was all drafted up in AutoCAD. We did have our own BIM department, so I'm not really sure how that side of the industry actually works. Like I said, I was very green to this when I dug into it myself. And I personally do not like AutoCAD very much. I think it's a pretty archaic program. I mean, for for someone my age, but I know that it is a standard and it is very powerful. So I did try to experiment with it, but I don't actually know how our project went off. I'm pretty sure we used AutoCAD and our BIM guys could, turn different things off, different layers on and off. Is that answering your question, or am I confused?
And
That's
Alan,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine. I was just curious where you started. That's fine. Go ahead. It's no big deal.
And I'll just clarify real quick, because I know, Ivan, you're on as well from Autodesk, and the intention of what I wanted to have Tony share was that this isn't necessarily the perfect world best practice of how to do this, but it's a really interesting sort of hack of what has been figured out to make this work for what PCL as a contractor needs. And that's where definitely, Ivan, when we talk later, it'd be good to figure out which Friday we want to have you on to talk about much more of like this is how we should be doing it. But I think it's very interesting for us to share with everybody what's happening here, how it's being done, so we know this, and then we'll talk about perfect world at a different meeting.
All right, that's fine. Maybe I'm jumping in. Sorry about that.
No, it was a good question though. I'm glad you brought it up. But go ahead.
Okay. So like I said, I went into AutoCAD and I started changing around some settings, doing some research. And vector-based images are captured fairly easily through AutoCAD. You just have to, go through some standard plotting formats. There's a DWG to PDF format you have to go through and make sure there are some small settings in there that you can look for that say like capture vector-based images, or DPI output, which is I think digital pixel image maybe. It just the clarity of your vector-based image, but nonetheless you have to just make sure small settings like that are turned on, and you can plot fairly normally, and you'll get your vector-based graphics onto your PDF. And then there's just a couple little screen caps to walk people through it, and there's that. There's also the Bluebeam. Bluebeam has a plugin in AutoCAD, which is fairly handy, and that captures vector-based images as well.
Going back one, though, Tony, is there anything in that specific settings of the PDF printer that you found were, helpful? I mean, it's just the DW to PDF. Okay, so there wasn't anything specific as far as certain check boxes or anything that were more or less helpful for you within that?
There's some extra, like I said, small like the cook PDF options down there. There are some small things that say like capture vector-based images, but nothing. Like I'm pretty sure there are actually standard turned on, so you don't really have to go into them. There's more tricks when it comes to font, though. Font is a really hard thing to maneuver in AutoCAD. It took me a long time playing with it, because on my last assignment with PCL, I was actually working with a drawing set and a designer that was using like different type settings and font settings that I couldn't, or font styles, and I could not for the life of me figure it out. It took like weeks to do this. My boss was starting to really get on me on this. And then, the more and more research I did, I noticed that there were really small tweaks that you had to make to your text to get them to accurately print as text. And even if you didn't do these, even the Bluebeam settings couldn't help you. Like the Bluebeam plugin that I just mentioned, that wasn't going to help you either. So we'll get to text now. Text is obviously, its own thing separate from image graphics like rasters and vectors. So what you have to do to get text to show up on your drawings, if you want that data to maintain from design to construction set, you have to go into your text settings in AutoCAD and make sure you change all your text styles to true type fonts. True types are denoted by the little T's right over here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but it's the two little T's in the font name box. And there's also another type of text called SHX fonts. They are not nearly as easy to capture using the Bluebeam plugin or using the DWG to PDF plot style that AutoCAD has. And what you have to do, you have to make sure you use these TrueType fonts. You have to make sure your width factor and oblique angle are set standard. The width factor has to be 1, and the oblique angle has to be 0. If it's anything different, they're not going to print as text, and Bluebeam will not be able to recognize it as text or search it or highlight it, none of that. So from there.
Nathan is loving life right now, I think. Right, Nathan? How great is this guy?
I know. Well, and it's so funny. It's like, oh yeah, I just reverse engineered all these things that, you know, are the bad products that come out of that we all understand. I mean, it's so many things that I don't understand that I just learned through hearsay, and you just like hacked it over a summer, which is cool.
See, I feel like
you just should have seen his face, Tony. He was like, okay, Carrie, continue. I also have to leave in a couple of minutes, but I'll talk to you guys later. I have to run, but keep on AutoCADing. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Carrie.
Okay, bye.
I was going to add on the difference in the Bluebeam printer, PDF printer in AutoCAD versus the DWG to PDF printer.
Okay.
That was one of the things we found out, that if you use the Bluebeam to create the PDF, it doesn't necessarily give you your layer information inside of the.
Yeah, there's that too. You lose that metadata as well, which was a a huge loss. I was actually working on a project where I had to get like one specific layer was the the piles for the structure or the base of the structure. And I just wanted that layer turned on, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, like why the data was lost in it. So I had to go to the BIM guys in my job, and they messed around with it. And when they printed me the document, this is where I got my first taste of this. They printed me a document that had that one layer activated, but they only knew how to export it as raster. So it didn't matter. I couldn't highlight any of the, the names or any part of the piles, and it was useless. Like all that information was there for them, but they didn't know how to export it for me, and it was a huge pain to send it down the line to not even be worth anything. So I'm leaving to charge my laptop.
Oh, no worries. Interesting.
I was so curious about a few things. I mean, it sounds like, Anthony, are you reprinting design documents that were handed to you guys by engineers and architects, or where these drawings were coming from? Is this something
for my project, or for these ones that I'm presenting right now?
The ones that you figured this out on, it almost sounds like you were reprinting design documents so that you could use
well, yeah, I did get a couple design documents from the team to mess around with, but these ones that I'm showing you right here, I downloaded these off of AutoCAD's website. These are just like template documents that I messed around with. So the example that I was going to use, I probably have it open, the print here. If you give me a second, I'll open yeah, I do have it. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Some of these fonts right here are TrueType, and some of them are SHX fonts, and you can see that from this right here, from this little guy showing you this is the exact same document just opened in AutoCAD, and then when I export it as a PDF, it's in black and white for some reason. I'm not sure why, but some of this text is useful, like I can highlight it and copy it, and then some of it is useless. It's all SHX over here, and then this is all the TrueType, and that's like the perfect example of what's going on. These ones right here, I don't know if you guys are seeing my screen as I do this. Okay, these ones right here were all SHX fonts, and they were fonts that were TrueType, but their oblique angle or width factor were set to some unknown setting that didn't match, the standard.
I think I get Chris's question though, is that ultimately you had received a drawing from a designer, an engineer, something that was stamped or certified, but then that wasn't giving you what you needed. So then you got the original CAD DWG, opened that and reprinted it for yourself and made the changes that they couldn't change for you, right? More or less.
Yeah, that's what I did. Are you asking that as like a legal standpoint? Or?
I mean, I don't know. Is that where you're going with that, Chris? Or
well, yes, it is. But at the same time, that is awesome and hilarious that you.
No,
you
that's
did.
the reality. That's what a lot of
I know,
contractors
I
are dealing with
completely
in order to get
understand.
efficiency. Yeah.
But what
Yeah,
I
I
want to
mean,
know, part of what I want to note in saying that though, is that this is, while yes, this is ultimately helping you as a contractor, I can't tell you how unbelievably useful this is in a design world during design to be able to do these exact same actions.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's
It's
the thing. That's
frustrating.
why I did it. I tried to get it. Like my boss was
Yeah.
saying, can you, from the get-go, make a standard for our guys to use? And it was unfortunate that this is why I think the CP Coalition is pretty useful. Is when I tried to give it to them, they were like, "No, we have our own standards. We won't use true type fonts." And I was like, "You're gonna pay me and my people a lot more to spend a lot more time wasting, just wasting it trying to recover the data that you guys have already typed." And I didn't mean to be so frank or rude, but it was like, this is useful information that you're throwing in the garbage. And I was really hoping they would adopt it, but it was very tough. So I feel like if you have something like the coalition that they acknowledge early, they'd be stoked about it.
I think
Welcome
that
to
goes
the
back-
industry, Tony.
Yeah, and that goes to Lonnie's point earlier, though, about knowing who the different audiences are, and that even though we all see value in fixing this process, the way you pitch it to a GC is different than the way you pitch it to an architect, is different than the way you pitch it to an engineer. And we need those that represent those different sides of it to all say those different points.
Yeah.
And it certainly can't only come from technology or service side, because that's going to sound, biased. And that is the point of this, cross-industry coalition, is to have those different voices.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. No one really wants to listen to a 22-year-old either. I'm pretty crass about it. So
Yeah, we need more millennials like you in the industry taking things up.
Nathan,
Yes.
with my experience with Balfour Beatty, I used to manage digital documents for that company for the Southeast region. And the general contractor has a lot of weight in establishing parameters and guidelines at the beginning of the process on how documents need to be printed and how they're going to be handled, so it can be effectively used through the construction process, and also to effectively be delivered as a handover material to the owner. If those guidelines and parameters are set up from beginning, the process works smoothly. If it doesn't, then a lot of the times you get different types of the PDFs produced as raster image, vectors. You cannot do a sheet comparison if you're trying to do a very simple comparison between mechanical and architectural, or mechanical and structural, because for some reasons those were issued on different scales, and it diminishes the work that you could do as a general contractor. So if you set up the ground rules from the beginning, things go a lot smoother.
And the question is, what is setting up the ground rules? Because just because it's an effective system that worked on one project, I think a big point of the coalition is that copying, pasting from one job to the other, doesn't work. It's like I can build my, Google Calendar on my phone, and it works really great when I set it up to remind me when all my meetings are, what I need to do. If I load my wife's calendar into my phone, it's not going to work very well, even though it works really well for her. And it's like, we think that we can do that with PDF standards. And it's like, oh yeah, no, as long as we all just agree to something. It's like, well, no, it's how do we get together and ask the questions at the beginning of a job to get to a common standard that meets all these other standards. I mean, I think that's the ultimate vision. I know it's lofty, but how do we create that time for the people to sort of argue and spar and go back and forth of what their particulars are, and then just agree on something? Yeah.
I completely agree. It's not a one solution for everything, but if you ask the right questions from the beginning on what the expectation is for the project, then you can start setting up that solution for that specific project. As you mentioned, every single project is different.
Yep.
Every single project is unique, and every single project is going to have different requirements based on the needs for the PDFs.
And that's the fine but important line between the fact that the coalition produces a guideline that then Tony can take and make into a standard. So Tony can call it a standard because it's specific to the project that they're doing it for, and it was agreed upon. Well, hopefully, as much as we can get. I know we're living in the real world, but that ultimately, the coalition may produce guidelines, which are the right questions, that the answers to those questions produce standards that adhere to other industry standards that are existing, or as we try and, influence and align a lot more industry standards that are, across architects, engineers, contractors, and get them to agree to something. We don't necessarily want to create something new from scratch, but we just want to say, okay, you're close enough to this. Why don't you guys all get together and let's agree to share this same common standard? And then we just promote the right questions to the project teams and hopefully facilitate more of those conversations that should happen like in a BIM execution plan. Penn State wants you to take, 3 to 5 days to fill this thing out with a project team. And we all know that never happens, but it should. And so maybe if we combine these drawings and other things into it as well, and make it more holistic and less BIM specific, I think that's where we're really going to gain traction. But it has to be advocacy around taking the time for project teams to think and put all this information together. Sorry, I just hijacked the meeting. Go ahead, Tony. But yes, great point, Ivan.
I don't know if I have too much more on the subject.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was, I thought that was perfect, and it spurred some great conversations, some great questions. I mean, I think ultimately these are the little things that we do want to continue to share. And even just within this conversation, I think folks that listen to this video later will get something out of this. And that's where I do want to see, Ivan, what your schedule is. And maybe since we started talking, but we didn't really do introductions, let's move in and do those introductions because we're already over our time and I want to wrap this up here. But I want to introduce yourself and what you do for Autodesk. And then also if you can let us know what your schedule is, we'd love to book you on this call in the future.
Actually, I started with Autodesk about 4 months ago. I used to work for Balfour Beatty Construction. I worked there for about 9 years. I was the senior process manager for the Southeast region, managing VDC, managing digital documents for multiple projects. Worked a lot with Disney, developed different workflows for managing documents throughout different platforms. And now I am with Autodesk as sales under Frank Moore under sales development team, and I'm in charge of Kobe, managing information through the project lifecycle to handover.
Awesome.
In availability, I'm pretty much open. I'd like to participate in this calls because I think it's one of the things that during construction they don't talk much about it, and it's one of the biggest issues and problems with managing documents and information in construction.
Awesome. Thanks, Ivan. Okay, good. And yeah, we'll schedule that either in the next couple weeks. Definitely before BIM Forum, want to have you on and talk about different Revit workflows because I think ideally we all want everyone to be working out of Revit and not in AutoCAD, but we do know that AutoCAD's a reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I skipped down to Ivan. Let's go back up to the top here. So I believe is 360 is that Cody on the phone, or what number is that?
Yes, that's me.
Awesome. You want to introduce yourself, Cody?
Sure. My name is Cody Nowak. I'm the VDC BIM manager over at Martin Brothers. Martin Brothers is a subcontractor, and we do drywall framing. So what I'm doing over there, I came in to Martin Brothers about 2 years ago. I fixed up the BIM department, got it running really well. Stepped out of there, and I'm more of a R&D now for the past year, doing virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, reality capture, that kind of stuff. We've come up with some pretty cool stuff lately. With we put out a proof of concept video with Structure. Actually, they covered Structure. Came in and interviewed me. I suggest all you guys take a look at it. What we did was created a bathroom pod that we typically prefab, and we built a bathroom pod with holograms, so no construction documentation, no tape measure. We're building with holograms directly from the BIM model. So pretty cool stuff.
And Cody, whenever you finally upload that video and send it to me, I can share it on this call of when I got to use it. But I have to say, I was shocked. I mean, I really tried to figure out, like, there's got to be a way as I'm moving my head around this stud that it's going to lose, adaptability, lose accuracy. And it was very, very impressed at how accurate the HoloLens was. And as you were explaining sort of the redundancy of the location awareness, very, very cool stuff. But and not as much related to PDFs, but you'd be surprised, at the end of the day, we still need to share that same data.
Whoa.
Awesome.
Exactly, and that data is, that's able to connect it, man. Is that's where I see the CP coalition being able to have like a database and making those connections, man, from the PDFs to the BIM model is going to be key because we're going to want to access that information anyways when we're in the holographic world.
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks, Cody. Chris, up next.
Welcome.
Hey, I'm Chris Freddy. I'm with Avail. I'm with Avail. We're a software creator. We're actually a content management company. That being said, I'm 3 months out of architecture, having been in architecture for over a decade. So I do have to say, as I think about this, that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I'm kind of with Nathan on this one. Technically, I guess we're a channel.
Awesome, thanks. Next off is Dean. Are you still on? Oh, I muted him before. Hold on. There we go. You there, Dean? Oh, maybe not. Maybe he's writing me. Hold on a second. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. It's working. So Dean's on the call as well. Dean's with Paramnesia, which is a Revit plugin that we're actually really interested from a coalition standpoint because it potentially could have the ability to look at some of the structure of naming conventions and other back-end metadata inside of Revit that we could, use to better. Oops, sorry. Let me get out of this here. But interesting to have him as part of this and some of the products that he's using. So good to have Dean here. Ivan introduced himself already. Lonnie went through as well. Next up is Nick. Are you there, Nick? Or did I mute? I didn't mute you.
Hi, my name is Nick Kilford. I come from a structural steel. Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me now? Awesome. My name is Nick Kilford. I come from about a decade in the industry. I'm currently employed by Schuff Steel as a project BIM coordinator.
Awesome. And that's right, Schuff Steel. Very nice. And is Schuff, are you guys using Tekla or S?
And I ended up hearing about...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
We're actually currently using Tekla.
Awesome, okay. And I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. And Sasha Reed actually at this year's Extreme Conference at the dial-in, so I'm happy to be here. I'm actually really interested to see about coordinating efforts for metadata extraction out of Revit directly into Tekla.
Ah, interesting. Okay, great. And so I think, yeah, next week we'll have Chris Langiza will be talking more about the data dictionary, the third initiative. So definitely next week will be a good conversation because, yeah, as a former Tekla user, I think that's always been a challenge.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, next one, Niran, you want in? Oh wait, did I still have you muted? Let me unmute you. All right, go ahead, Niran.
Hi guys, I'm Niran. I'm the CEO of OnTarget, and OnTarget is a collaboration software for construction management. What we basically do is bring in the Revit model. We have an API with Forge now, and so we bring in all BIM models and then connect that with the construction schedule. And the construction schedule can be generated in OnTarget itself, or you can actually import it from P6 or Microsoft Project or Excel as well. And bring it together, then through the iPad app, or the mobile app, tracking the progress of the project from the field, and basically being able to analyze progress and any like delays or things like that. So I'm based out of New York right now, and we've been piloting with several large scale construction projects in New York right now. My background is architecture, undergraduate, and then I moved on to becoming into civil engineering and construction. Yeah, and also we're integrating with Procore this month, and lot more integrations to come.
Awesome. Great. Roberto.
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Roberto Garcia. I'm with Keller Pacific. Basically, what we do is we provide technological support, software support, and project support for the construction AEC industry. A little bit about my background: 16 years in electrical engineering and lighting design, mostly emphasizing here in California an OSHPD project, military installations, and a couple of schools and governmental buildings, as well as other type of buildings. Currently, I am an application specialist here at Keller, providing training in AutoCAD, Autodesk software, AutoCAD, Revit, Navisworks, point layout, and also in Bluebeam, providing Bluebeam training. So I just wanted to be a part of the coalition, and just with my experience, I just know everything that all the pains that come from kind of just what Tony talked about, just getting the drawings from somebody else that just could have been set up from the beginning correctly, and having to avoid him altogether doing that whole entire exercise. But that's what we're here for. That's the whole point. And it's really it's refreshing to know that we actually have other people that are also not only have the same kind of goals and vision in mind to kind of get everybody on the right track, but just to have somewhat of a standardized approach, if anything, just because, like everybody knows, there's not one solution for every project. So very, very thankful for being here and being part of the group, Nathan. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Roberto. Tony, I know we got you earlier, and Lonnie as well. So I think that unless I missed anybody on the call or anybody has anything else to add, I do apologize for us going 15 minutes over, but I thought it was a great conversation. Again, this will be recorded and up on the YouTube channel for anyone else to watch after the fact and share. Next week, look for, or we'll be sending out an agenda for next week. And again, focusing on the data dictionary as our core focus next week. If there are not any other questions, we will wrap it up. And thank you guys so much for giving us some time on your Friday afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.